I think so.
Okay, let's get on into it. I did a quick change here, Chip, and made you wins of the week. But anything exciting in your world, Chip, that you want to kick it off with?
Um, wow, wins of the week. I'm not. I've had very little customer contact this week. It's been kind of heads down on other stuff.
Hmm.
Um, some good internal wins that I don't want to get into details on, other than to say that we're advancing the ball rapidly, even more rapidly than I thought we were going to be able to on some of the things that were announced at Connect. The biggest one being HWM pricing. I think we're going to see changes there, pretty quickly for some products, and I'm really excited about that.
What is
It's a
HWM?
High
uh,
water.
getting rid of high watermark pricing and going to the way SaaS Alerts is built, going
Okay.
to CMQ for every Kaseya product. Jim announced that at Connect. It's an 18-month long project. So I was thinking, boy, we probably wouldn't even get out of the gate with making any real changes until close to the end of this year. But I think we have a pretty good shot at getting out in front of that, and that's really that's a big win for a lot of our customers, of Kaseya's customers broadly, I think.
What is CMQ?
Contract minimum quantity, the same way SaaS Alerts bills. You have a minimum that you don't go below, but you can flex up and down anywhere you want in the universe above that.
Thanks, Chip.
Cool.
Somebody asked in chat.
Oh, got it. So I don't know. Are there other wins of the week out there from the customer side? Would love to hear about those.
Yeah.
And if not, we'll have to put Ben on the spot and give us wins that we have in the MSA team, because they happen every week.
Absolutely.
Every week, for sure.
Yeah. Who's got one? Any good stuff out there from you guys?
We had a win of the week. It's a win for both of us. Thanks to Anthony and Maya, we just signed up for managed SaaS Alerts. So we're excited about that.
Very cool, Tobyn. Very cool. And Andy's giving you some fireworks there, some AI fireworks. All right. Others, anybody have some good stuff to share?
I was reviewing Ben's YouTube on guest accounts, stale guest accounts, and shared mailbox accounts. And so I will say that content is still relevant and valid today.
Thanks.
Very cool. Well, there's definitely going to be some stuff that we're going to be talking about with third parties as more and more stuff is, relevant and shared outside organizations. It's pretty interesting, Chip, the number of stories that continue to climb since even last week. So looking forward, and I guess not looking forward to sharing those with everybody.
Yeah. So
Um,
I have a question for Andy, since he brought up his win of the week, reviewing some of Ben's what should we call that? Well-aged content. It's like wine. Gets
Mature.
better with age. Are you fully utilizing automation to help keep those specific account types in check?
So the reason this came up to me is that I was told by my account manager the reason I'm being billed extra from SaaS Alerts is because I have these types of accounts. And I went, how do I find these? So I will say something that I'm looking to discover. Is there a way for me to identify a in SaaS Alerts shared mailboxes so that I make sure that they are closed and not able to log in? I wasn't able
Yes.
to look at that yesterday. When I went through this with my team, we weren't able to find that. So that's on my list today to tackle.
Got it. Okay. Well, Ben and company can definitely help you with that, or Anthony, or really anyone in
Great.
support. But you can definitely do that. There's a set of tools. Maybe they're not too obvious. I don't know. The product has become pretty complex, so it does take a little navigational energy to get there. But
And what this raises, by the way, is that there will be fees if we're not attentive to it and to be able to be proactive with them. So that's just one of the things that was coming up for me. And that's what I'm trying to say is that this is what's really happening. And when we talk about this from a standpoint, customers might say, hey, I'll just use the same tools you are, but they don't understand how to use them properly and to protect and the combination of attributes that we learn here on this community call every
Yep.
week. And that I think is really powerful. And to talk about that in differentiation with our prospective customers and customers.
What you really want to go after there, Andy, is there's an automation path for having the system itself, for having SaaS alerts.
Yeah.
Monitor those accounts that get stale. That's the general term we use for them, stale accounts, and automatically set them to block sign in. And
Well, we have that as part of MSA, but I
Yep.
wasn't able to find one for shared accounts. And so that's what I was drilling down on.
Got it. All right. The
But
guys
I
can
don't
definitely help you with that.
We've
Awesome.
asked this before, but with shared mailboxes, you can delegate access. I thought by definition, a shared mailbox can't be logged into anyway. So why is this even a question? Like, I understand the fact that you can go in and disable logins, but by
No, you
definition, I
can.
didn't think you could log into them.
Yeah, you can't
You
log into
can.
them, Gary, if they're not configured properly.
So block sign in is something I'm able to do on a shared mailbox individually, but I'm wanting to do it through SaaS alerts in a complete configuration. And I wasn't able to figure that out yesterday.
Yeah, the guys will take you through it.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's super important for everybody to know. I mean, it's something we do in our onboarding, explain to all of our customers. A lot of people don't realize, even though Microsoft recommends you block sign in, they don't do it for you. So whenever you create a shared mailboxes, you'll see those mailbox usernames inside of the active users in 365. And so someone can change the password. The temporary password is generated. You just don't see it. You just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So someone can go in there and they can change the password and they can log in as that shared mailbox. And obviously the problem is shared mailboxes typically aren't monitored. And so that's why the recommendation is to block it. You can do it in one fell swoop, right? It's very easy from the active user page. It'll even tell you which ones are your shared mailboxes. You can select them all and say block sign in.
But I thought they were blocked by default, so I'm definitely going
No,
to check that.
They are wide open by default.
And
They're
there's
able to
no
log in.
But
MFA.
ours, but isn't, okay, I'll have to go back and look at the screen, but I thought it said, maybe it's just a setting in there that we always do. I don't know, but
I wasn't
definitely
able
we'll
to see
check
how
that.
to do it with conditional access policies. I was beginning to drill down on Lighthouse, which is where Microsoft was directing us.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can do this in SaaS alerts, that's my objective.
Yeah.
Like that in the middle of the road, just plow through.
All right. Let me just see. And you know, Chip, I'm just curious with those shared mailboxes, if a threat actor does get, is that one of the ones where they could easily turn on MFA and lock you out?
In theory, I mean, that also depends on your MFA settings, right? You have to have self-service MFA set up versus administrator control. Like there's a couple permutations there. What I don't like about them is that they're sitting out there. They have a password that no one's ever seen. They almost never get changed, and there's no MFA on them. So they're a natural target.
And then if you take Ben's video, they can use that to find other valid email accounts and begin to understand the structure and nature of the organization based on group membership.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that, correct me if I'm wrong, Chip, Bo talks a lot about, uses for enumeration quite often to attack in his cloud pen testing, if I recall. Do you recall that for vaguely?
He does. I mean, Bo uses any beachhead he can find. He's, Bo's kind of a next level guy. We're all lucky he's not a hacker, because the tools he's written are, well, by his own admission, one of them could have actually been used because he put stuff out there open source on GitHub with the Microsoft hack last November. Like that it was literally description of Bo's graph runner tool, how that thing got deployed. So, but yes, once you're in, Andrew, that's the whole point. You've got one account, you can start digging around and fishing for other attributes, and you just keep hopping from one island to the next until you're at the heart and soul of the island chain, and you can do your damage.
Yeah. Yep.
Just one quick shout out. If you look in Fortify, there is a control that allows you to check one box and disable shared mailbox sign in.
Thank
Andy,
you.
I'll show you that when we meet.
No, I was looking at respond rules, and that was the challenge. So
that's
that was
policy you can put in place.
Cool.
Super easy.
Thanks.
Okay.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that a one time or is that a permanent setting for all new shared mailboxes that get created?
It's a great question, Corey. I don't know the answer to that one.
Corey, I'm pretty certain that it's a permanent setting. It's a
So
policy setting.
it's for existing and it's for all new.
Correct.
Okay.
And Enrique says one time. What do you mean by that, Enrique?
It's a permanent tenant setting. You
Good.
don't,
Thanks.
any new accounts that come in follow that policy, or that
Right.
setting.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Now, do we have to do that per client, or is that something we can set globally across? I missed the.
You'd have to do it per client. Remember that, well, I mean, you can, in Fortify rules, you actually can apply them to all your clients. So yes, you could do it. You could apply that rule to as many clients as you wanted in Fortify.
And we could set up an alert when that becomes unblocked. See, I'm beginning to think through how this could get manipulated over time.
Exactly, Andy. Trust but verify. Put a response rule in place looking for that.
That's where I was struggling. I didn't understand how to check for a shared mailbox in response rules to check to see if it was enabled.
Yeah, but so if you set up as a Fortify policy and it's on the different organizations, if you have it where it regresses, we have the event that'll let you know that it's regressed. And it shows up in the regressed panel. You know what I mean? So you can see it in Fortify when you go to check periodically what's regressed.
So it's nice to go down this rabbit hole and talk about this level of detail once in a while. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, the rabbit hole itself is a win of the week.
Good stuff. Really good. Others? Who else got gonna pull a rabbit out of the hat here, Jim? Chip.
Am I losing my hair that fast?
No, you just never mind.
Sorry.
Look at the bright side. He didn't call you somebody else.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will move on here. Let me. So last week we brought up the fact that, we started talking about SaaS Alerts training and certification. Let me kind of give you the backbone of this, and I'll turn it over to Ben, but I will share my screen. I have the whole thing up here. We'll kind of run through it. This is just a screenshot of it. But here's the backdrop. We are seeing a dramatic, through the lens of right of boom, we are seeing, we talked to hundreds and hundreds of MSPs, and, we are seeing that, conferences need to shift value proposition. And one of the big things that I'm hearing from private equity is, hey, look, you've got to add content and training and certification, right? So that when my people come back, I can say, hey, this is not only did they go and learn about X, Y, and Z, but they also came away with a training and certification and this product, that solution, this solution. So I posed that to Chip and Ben, coming out of, I said probably north of 100 conversations post Right of Boom, and SaaS Alerts came up quite a bit, right? In terms of, how awesome it is and the amount of things and settings that can be done. So wouldn't it be cool if we could do that, at our event and an ongoing thing? So I'm going to share out my screen here and kind of have Ben walk through what this could look like. And again, ideally, you guys give some feedback into this. So let me just check here. Okay, there's just some other comments on conditional access. Okay, Ben, you with me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So can everybody see this okay?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, this is kind of an outline that I'm my first rough draft of covering pretty much the entire platform from A to Z, and the stuff that MSA looks into, how we create our rules. as well as covering the different ins and outs of the platform. But it starts off with just the settings, knowing about your alerts, how to configure power filters, how to take news articles and things that you see and create responders for them. There's also some labs that I put in here as well that I don't know. Oh yeah, there we go. There's some ones that will set up some events that will be based off of real life things that we've seen, and we'll task like small groups with finding them and then creating responders to combat them. We'll also dive into the different ways to create responders, especially using IOCs. And yeah, and so this is kind of what I came up with, as well as covering everything that relates to Fortify and Unify. But definitely would love input on this sort of thing. If there's something that I missed, I try to cover pretty much everything. It's almost like a very, very detailed like I'm not gonna say onboarding, but just kind of a re-education for anybody that has used the platform or hasn't used it in a while and wants to know about the new things that are in there. And if time uh, permits, we also may do a little bit of diving into some API basics. I think it's been extremely helpful for people that have asked for features in our product that maybe isn't so like available in the UI, but is capable, but our API is capable of doing. And so I wanted to kind of just give people an introduction into that.
Yeah, and then
But
I see Andy's hands raised, but and then Ben, ideally at the end, right, we're going to work on a test out and certification so that you could say, yeah, SaaS Alerts Administrator certified.
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, so I guess first off, Andy, your thoughts.
Well, my question around this one, I think this is a great idea, but I also see this really tied to just this the SaaS Alerts perspective. What if I'm taking on a customer that's only used conditional access policies or caps, and I want to say this is how SaaS Alerts would modify your caps, or if I wanted to say here's a pre-configuration of a SaaS Alerts compliance standard, a way to think of that, or a cap standard that we could then say, this is where you're deficient easily, and begin to talk about these packages of security configurations is really what you're hearing me raise here.
I think we just heard Andy raise that we need a sales track and a technical track.
That's probably not a bad idea. I guess.
And by the way, understanding that when we introduce SaaS Alerts to somebody, they're used to only looking at things from a conditional access policy perspective. And I would like a way to translate from SaaS Alerts to caps so that they would better understand it. That would be another way to look at it. Thanks.
Maybe we should recruit Ryan to come in and teach a sales workshop. That'd be pretty cool too.
Idea.
Well, yeah, and I like conditional access policies. I would for a long time I would have people ask me, hey, which do you prefer, conditional access policies or SaaS alerts? And I'm like, why you have to choose? I say that both of them. When I did my workshop in Vegas, I compared it to a bouncer that is outside of the club versus one that's inside, making sure people are behaving. Could you sacrifice one for the other? Well, sure, but you're always going to have risk there. So that's one thing I love about SaaS Alerts, the snapshots, is the ability to still work with those conditional access policies, which I think are still very important.
Ben, I love that analogy because I know you're a big clubber.
Oh yes, definitely.
Welcome back, Jim.
You're
welcome back.
in and out of clubs every single night of the week, I'm
Well,
sure.
I think I was there for all of maybe like 10 minutes at the One in Connect. And I was like, this is loud.
Ben's got some run-ins with bouncers.
Jim, would you be focusing on the security inside or outside? While you're here, Jim.
You know what? I think you got to start with the outside, because then you can at least scan people as they go in and determine whether or not they're going to be troublemakers. So I think you got to start outside, but I would agree with Ben. You should have both.
Good,
And this is
good.
coming from someone that used to be a bouncer in college, by the way.
Oh, you were.
I can
It
see
was.
that.
Was that during your football days and you had
It was during my football days.
how many more pounds did you have on you then, Jim?
Only about 10.
Okay. Okay.
I checked IDs.
Ah. All right. Okay, so Andy, great point. Enrique, you go.
So quick question. One, welcome back, Jim. Quick question. Anybody seen by mistake this week and I turned on GPS on one of our tenants? So basically with that then conditional access as trusted locations, you could tell a GPS and then say United States, Mexico. So that'll prompt the end user on their phone to give full-time permissions to Microsoft Authenticator to GPS location. So I think I did not expect that was the behavior it was going to give me. But so an end user decided not to give it permissions and automatically got blocked. I don't know if anybody's played with that feature, but I think that goes a long way to token theft.
Yeah, Enrique, I saw coverage somewhere of that. I don't know if it was one of the regular blogs I read or a Reddit post. And I can see users having a lot of problems with that. I mean, people don't like giving GPS information, even though in reality, all of our cell phones are tracked anyway, whether you actually give explicit permission for it, you can be triangulated, anywhere by government, law enforcement, people with the right tools that aren't either of those. So it's kind of, futile to refuse it. But I can also see end users in particular saying, hey, this is a personal device that I use for work occasionally. There's no way I want my company's business systems following me around and collecting GPS data.
I agree, but let's say company-owned phones and things like that. I
Yeah.
just wanted to get everyone's feedback on as far as token theft, because I think that, well, no, token theft is token theft. Doesn't matter where your GPS is.
No,
really
it doesn't
works out.
matter. Once you have the token,
Yeah.
all bets are off. MFA, location settings, all of it, it doesn't matter. And we'll go back to the bouncer piece. That's why you need them both inside and out. Like if conditional access could solve everything and provide absolute security and a guarantee that accounts couldn't be compromised, there'd be a lot less use for us. We'd have a lot less work to do. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
We wouldn't be catching hundreds of compromises every week.
Trusted IP, I think, would be, if you're only allowing trusted IPs, then that would definitely be an assistance, I guess, with token theft.
Even that, I don't think it's going to help. Well, again, once the trusted IP is coming in during the IDP phase, during the authentication phase, and you're past that when you have a valid access token.
Yeah, you're right. I'll shut up.
No, don't shut up.
It'd be interesting, Chip, if we could add the source IP, if it was a token theft, is outside of an approved area, then that would be another way of saying, even with a token theft occurred, if this is coming in from someplace that doesn't make sense, or if it's on an unapproved VPN, that would be a nice feature set.
I'm pretty sure that would actually show up as an unapproved location, even though it's SaaS Alerts, the activity would still show up with an OAL tag.
Okay.
Wouldn't we see the IP not for IDP purposes, but like in Microsoft logs, if you're accessing Outlook or any portal, wouldn't we see the log of communication? Does Microsoft report anywhere that IP?
Yeah, it does. So remember, if somebody uses an access token to successfully compromise an account, they're going to be in there banging around. It's not like they're not doing anything. So the other activities that occur are going to happen from whatever IP they're coming from. If it's not a VPN that's masquerading where the customer actually is, then it's going to show up as a outside approved location activity. It will definitely in fact, we have respond rules that are built in just that way to look for, hey, there's a change in the IP address here. We're seeing a new connection. And now we see this activity going on with an OAL attached. I mean, that's a core part of how the platform identifies an account that's been compromised already.
So something that comes up through this conversation, Ben, about the class, it would be great to have scenarios about this type of attack would show itself this way, this type of attack would show itself this way, instead of configuring out, also saying that if I had to look at the percentage of attacks coming in today, these are the top 10%, the top 90%, and this is how you configure SaaS alerts to respond to that. So you actually get a way to map this. That makes sense.
Yeah, we could look at doing like labs that have different attack scenarios on them, and each group has to find their own different way and come up with their own unique rules or detections. Still kind of working out logistics on that.
Yeah, we have a lot of time before Right a Boom. I mean, it's not infinite, but we have a lot of time, and this is a first crack that Ben is presenting at topics that we want to cover. Last week we did talk about, hey, we want to do some labs and even introduce some gamification to those labs and have teams break up and devise their own solutions to some puzzles we want to put out there. But I think what Ben is presenting here is the general topic areas that we want to cover and tackle and get feedback from you guys as we always like to do.
And to be able to do a gap analysis around SaaS alerts and what we might be missing at this would be helpful too.
Yeah, and there's going to be new features that'll be out between now and then too,
Yeah.
that'll definitely add to this list.
There definitely will be.
Yeah, so this is not the final any stretch.
And I think, Ben, one of the things we were talking about is almost like when you break out, it's almost like we'll go into tabletop mode. Hey, this scenario just played out. Get with your team. How would you create an IOC, a respond rule, right? This would be you're in the life of managed SaaS alerts.
Yeah. I want it to be very interactive. I don't want to get up in the front and just talk the whole time. I want people to contribute, and so I think the labs will be a perfect way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, based upon Jim's comment, Ben, it sounds like you walk-in music. It's going to be some EDM soundtrack, and you're going to come in, jamming away.
And someone will be checking IDs at the door.
I can't do Imperial March again. I was hoping to do that one again.
Too nerdy.
Cool. So overall, I saw a few comments. Do you guys like this approach? Being able to, get your people or you personally go through, say, hey, I'm certified. I went through this program, et cetera, and I've done a deep dive training certification on SaaS alerts. Okay.
I think that somebody brought up an interesting question would be physical or online.
This whole discussion is based around the notion of something in person at Right a Boom.
Yeah.
Either a pre-day or a breakout, one or the other.
Yep.
Andrew, do you record your pre-days or anything? I know, like with the first Right a Boom that I went to, it was all the sessions were recorded and everything, and later on they were provided for the attendees.
Yeah, we've done that on main stage. We certainly could talk about it in breakout. We're gonna have a lot of workshops going on, so then it's always about cost, but we certainly can talk about it.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. All right, let's move on. Let me just look at bear with me here. I'm going to share my full screen here, but here, desktop. Okay. So Chip, this is one I sent to you. This is a new, man, the phishing continues to get clever. Has anybody gotten this one? I got this week and sent it over to Chip. This was a first for me where actually the threat actor put a calendar invite on my calendar. Has anybody experienced this one yet?
I'm getting that from sales
Steven, you got it?
I did.
You did as well, Enrique?
Yep.
Yeah. So interesting, again, we are, a little bit more in the know than your average user. But clever in which, highlighted, hey, obviously look at the subject, sense of urgency, you're going to be canceled, attend this meeting. So interesting how threat actor, changing their tactics, trying different approaches. When I took it off my calendar and said decline, interestingly, I know, and not shockingly, we have an undeliverable, right? And I'm assuming, Stephen, you got the same thing. I see you shaking your head, right? So anyway, yeah, Andy, take care. Anyway, Chip, any thoughts on this approach? Just again, trying a different tactic to get people to engage.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's certainly no surprise, right? You can send a calendar invite to anybody. The interesting thing to me about it is, and I would love to hear from, Corey said this has happened a lot. I've never had one of these, which is, I guess I'm not a popular enough target, which is an excellent place to be. You can add an attachment. This could have come with a file that said, hey, please review this invoice before you jump in. That file could be, sitting there with macros with a machine that isn't protected for that. Any other kind of malware payload that could be injected by you clicking on that. So there's lots of risk here. I would think that both Microsoft and Google would do better than they do at catching this kind of phishing in an email, but I guess they don't. So that's why there's third-party phishing tools out there, email scanning tools, which I know lots of us take advantage of. But I thought it's great to call out, Andrew. There's folks on this call that are always looking for ways to go back to the customers and enhance education. And this is a great little slide that should be going back to end customers so they know.
Yeah. And again, for your average user to see Microsoft billing, that they're not going to look at headers and all the other things. And yeah, Enrique.
So even with the third-party protections, Chip, we have multiple different tenants. So they're getting through many of these attacks I've been seeing lately. Will get through your top major players in third-party email protection. So even that, a lot of people think we're protected, but a lot of this stuff will go through anyway. Not reported to them, and yeah, we're updating for this behavior, and we're updating and updating. Well, yeah, but you're updating after the fact, so it's still.
Enrique, you could take this to the next, chain this together with one of the other attacks we saw, right, Chip? Which was, let's just say I open up a QuickBooks account, and now I remember the whole QuickBooks one we saw, where you have the QuickBooks phishing and it's actually from QuickBooks. Why not create a calendar invite with that email address, right? So now all of a sudden it appears legitimate. You send them to a URL that's completely out of band. And
yeah, you execute an attack in the middle on QuickBooks Online, or you send them a calendar invite to review, some financial data. You include a QDT file or what looks like a QDT file. Ask them to import it to QuickBooks. Like, there's so many ways you could spin off of this that are novel. And again, for those of you guys that are seeing it, I'm sure you'd be bringing those things up already if you saw that happen. I can see Corey posted that they had a whole bunch of this when they were going through their acquisition period and getting pinged from Gmail addresses like crazy. I would just encourage everybody, if there's some unique, novel new spin on this that comes up, definitely bring it to the call, or just email Andrew and let him know, and he'll bring it to the call.
Exactly.
I've had 2 or 3 of them in the last 2 weeks from random things. Obviously, I delete them, and they all come through Barracuda. So Barracuda is not. They're passing them straight through with no question.
So is it a plausible hypothesis that the anti-spam and malware filters are just ignoring calendar invites? And that's something that everyone's picked up recently?
They're probably not deemed to be malicious. Now, obviously, I didn't click on it to see if it was a legitimate invite.
Like I just delete it, but I have no, I've never looked and I don't even bother reporting them. So I just think that's a waste of time.
Yeah, unless it triggers some sort of volume thing, I don't think there's nothing inherently in the calendar invite that's going to trigger Barracuda, I think.
Well,
I'm
except from it's from an unusual or random Gmail address, which is typically what they are.
I mean, just look at the composition of that email address for Microsoft billing in Andrew's example here. To me, that should trigger an anti-phishing algorithm just in and of itself. Well, anyway, so the consensus of this group, for what it's worth, is that this is relatively new, past 6 months. That sounds like, but we're seeing an uptick of this across a lot of folks on this call.
Yep. Yeah. So definitely, get out. If you haven't told your clients about it, and the fact that, the third-party solutions aren't blocking it, I think it's an important one to let them know about. Well, because if it's getting through, someone's going to do something.
I mean, it's good. It could even be a good social engineering tactic, right? Where I could pretend like I'm your IT department and I'm scheduling a time to install updates. So instead of just sending you an email, I'm going to send you a calendar invite with a temporary Zoom link or some type of link that literally I want you to join the meeting. I'm not going to open up my camera. I'm just going to have a name of someone that I know because I searched your LinkedIn of someone that works in your IT department, right? And I'm going to have you give me access on that call. That will put a lot of people's guards down compared just to the typical phishing email saying, hey, I need you to change your password, click on this. Because people aren't used to that type of tactic where it's literally, think about how many, I got so many calendar invites on my calendar in a day now. It's just like, all right, what's the next calendar? What's the next meeting I'm going to? A lot of people will just click on that invitation link and not even think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Eric, you literally took the words out of my mouth. Eric V. Why wouldn't it be a screen connect as well, right? Corey, why couldn't it be something that's going to fly under the radar?
100%. If I'm doing it through a meeting, right? Like we're in a Zoom call, we're in a Teams. Well, they probably wouldn't use Teams, but in a Zoom call, right? You get Teams through on Microsoft account, I believe. So yeah, it could be Teams. Then I'm going to send you that screen connect link through chat. Right? I'm going to send you something through the chat, which now I'm bypassing a lot of your security tools that would be used if I just sent you a normal phishing email.
Yep. Yeah. And you were going to say something?
What do you think the end game was on this one? So you declined it and, it's a non-existent address. What do you think they were... Like, had you accepted it, what do you think was going to happen next? And I'm wondering if you've seen anybody sort of mock up an email that the accept button and the decline buttons don't actually do what they're intended to do. Because somebody could just fake that on an email too in HTML, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think one of two things come right to mind. Number one was it was a staged attack, right? I accepted, maybe it's like, hey, you sent me, what's the general user going to do? And you sent me oh yeah. And now I'm engaged, right? Mm-hmm. To Corey's point, oh yeah, we're the IT department. Meet us at the Zoom, we've been asked to do X, Y, and Z. Or there's something in the calendar invite, which I didn't go in and look. Was there a meeting URL? I didn't even explore it, Ann.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a stage one. Good.
I can see easily them trying to find out if there's a live address, but the fact that the email address doesn't exist, that to me, that defeats the whole purpose. If they're looking for real activity for you to respond, now we have a live email address, to go after and try to attack in other ways. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying, Corey. Gary, there's probably something in the original calendar invite to go to.
Oh, could be.
Yeah. So next time you have to click on it to find out.
Sure. Can I send it to you, Ann, to forward it to you to figure it out?
Yeah. Except the ICS file conceivably itself could be malware.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
it's
true.
just named ICS. It doesn't
Yeah,
mean
exactly.
that, yeah, right.
It could be anything. Yeah.
Now, the scenario I gave you guys earlier is not far-fetched. We had to respond to an event last week where we had someone from the Netherlands use teamed a few people in an organization. These adversaries were in the Netherlands. They teams them, and they got that user to utilize Quick Assist on their machine so that they can gain access to their machine. And so there's a lot of problems here, especially right. Like you shouldn't have your teams wide open to the world saying anybody can message me in Teams, right? But these are tactics that are actively being used out there that people are falling for. This one, that wasn't a counter invite, but it was a direct Teams message to, I'm staring at it now, about 6 different people in the organization claiming to be IT support and sending them a link through Teams to utilize Quick Assist and allow the adversaries to get on the machines.
Corey, I think I mentioned on this call, it's one of Black Hills' go-to now is stand up Teams infrastructure and start getting into an organization that way. Okie doke. Few other ones I want to talk about with you. Remember last week we kind of talked about this jump in third party and that supply chain attacks, and that the Verizon data breach report, they postulated that this is something that was growing. So they said, hey, we're going to start monitoring this. And lo and behold, year over year, it jumped from 15%, doubled to 30%. And we talked about, as an example, last week, this supply chain attack around, this food supply. Well, this week, Chip sent me this one, and it was a SMH, right? Chip, he shake my head. This one. So check this out. And again, the reason, why am I showing you guys? Why do I keep beating the drum on third-party risk? Because this is what is becoming, a go-to area for threat actors to impact your customers' biggest their biggest areas of revenue. So how do I inflict maximal pain, right, at scale on your customer? It's through some type of, third party compromise. So just quick overview on this one again to see how things are working at scale. This one, this company OPEX, I think I'm pronouncing OPEXUS.
That's how I read it.
OPEXUS. Okay. Thanks for that, Chip. Owned by Thoma Bravo. By the way, I don't know if you guys know, Thoma Bravo, the private equity firm, owns more security companies than anybody in the world. They had 2 employees who had previously, now mind you, this is working with the federal government.
It still blows my mind reading it again. It's just incredible.
2 employees who had previously been convicted of hacking the U.S. State Department. They were hired by this OPEXUS company. And the damage, by the way, was to more than 30 databases, 1,800 files, and it talks about the magnitude that OPEXUS has, its reach into the federal government. All right, you're talking over 100,000 users, 200 public institutions. Oh, and by the way, who processes records and litigation, compliance, and investigative settings. The brothers that, just to give you a sense, there's these, little background. There are these gurus who, were highly sought after, and, talks about a little about their background. But after, claim to fame and, they're graduating, they pled guilty, as it shows here, in 2015 to fraud. So fast forward, and OPEXUS, after getting out of prison, even though they work with federal government, decides to hire felons. I'm not sure how that happened, Chip, if they got their stuff expunged, but that's pretty hard to do. And not only hired them, but gave them access to a wide range of data, documents, and company servers. So, yeah, this is quite an interesting one, but again, highlights the continuation of third parties that are having massive impacts on organizations. So any comments on that one, Chip?
Yeah, I mean, it's look, you can see my reaction just as you're going through this. I'm just absolutely gobsmacked that these guys got hired after being known felons. Like I have this impression of federal government contractors, and these guys are doing Defense Department stuff, this OPEXIS, that they have to be CMMC level 3, FedRAMP, NIST. How could this possibly slip through the cracks? And if I remember this correctly, Andrew, when I originally read the article, the OPEXIS did discover after these guys were hired and while they were working on some of these projects that they were convicted felons for cybercrime before, but they didn't fire them right away. They just moved them laterally and took them off sensitive government projects. Like that to me is a part of the story that's even more mind-boggling. And it wasn't until OPEXIS came and said, okay, you guys are going to get terminated, that they stole data, deleted data, and took steps to actually hurt the company. So like there's just so much going on here. What does it mean for the attendees of the SASE call? I don't know. I guess that even in the biggest, best, what should be the most tightly run organizations around cybersecurity principles, this kind of stuff happens. And it's again, cautionary tale for your customers, for all we tell them, for everything we try to do to help them to run their businesses better and make sure they do background checks. I mean, I saw a bunch of comments about background checks in the comment thread. People sometimes just ignore it, and it can happen in any organization. Like this is a company with billions of dollars of revenue on the line, and it happened to them. Willful internal disregard of policy.
Yeah, Chip, I think all your comments are spot on. I think the highlight too is, again, your customers are working with third parties that have and could have massive implications back to them. And what's the due diligence your customers are doing with their largest suppliers and partners and vetting? And conversely, this is the business conversation for your biggest customers, right? The people that you do business with that generate the most revenue. If not today, are you aware of what their upcoming requirements are going to be from you to do business with them, to continue to have a relationship? What's that look like? And notice we're not talking about gaps in security and this. It's to keep doing business with someone that provides you 70% of your revenue. Do you have good insight, line of sight of what's going to happen in the next 3-6 months, of what the requirements look like from that? Like, isn't that a different conversation? I see you shaking your head, Ann, but isn't that a very different conversation than let's talk about, MFA and security and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, look, if we did a quick poll of the 42 people on this call, we can't really pull this off, but I'm going to guess that if we put the question, how many of you partners have done a vendor assessment of every single vendor you work with, including us, by the way, because we've done lots of them. And I know we haven't had requests from everyone on this call. And how many of your clients do vendor assessments for the rest of their vendors, including you? And my guess is it's a pretty small number. And this third party risk topic, Andrew, that's what sits at the core of it, is how are you assessing who you're buying stuff from? Like, we can no longer just trust the reputation that we see out there on a bunch of Yelp reviews for whatever it is that we're doing, because anything can be faked and anything can be made up at this point.
Yeah. Well, and so one other that I'm just going to bring before I go there. So again, this is just the other day, right? And again, we don't have to go into this one. It's again to just changing the conversation with your customers, right? About their big third parties that are responsible for processing data that they may be doing this business with, right? What due diligence are they doing? Again, and I think by asking questions around that, you're changing your role, right? Why am I, oh, well, Ann, that's an interesting question. Why you're asking? Well, here's why I'm asking, because of X, Y, Z, right? And this is the potential implications it could have to your business. And every week we talk about companies that have security budgets 150 to 200 times the size of any company you do business with, right? And week after week, we see the same, anyway, this is going to be, I could see this doubling in the Verizon data breach report it went from 15 to 30. I think I could see it going 30 to 45 to 50 this coming year, Chip, based on this velocity of what we're seeing these week over week over week.
Yeah. We'll have to remember that prediction, but I think you're right. Could even be on the low side.
It could be. Another one, by the way, Chip, I just wanted you to highlight this because I thought it was really interesting. I'll go over a high level, but this, I don't know, do any of you guys use Commvault? It's a lot of partners over the years have used Commvault, MSPs, they came out with Microsoft backup solution. And what's interesting about this, Chip, is I started to go through what could have mitigated, or alerted you to this compromise. And I ran it by you. And what I was really pleased about, Chip, is just the core features of SaaS Alerts. There's a lot of SIM functionality inherent in what you're doing, even though you're not, you never pitched yourself as a cloud-based SIM, but you would have been tipped off a lot on some of this, would you not have?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of features of SaaS Alerts that would have picked this up. One of them that's relatively new. If frequent guests on the call here or participants on the call will remember, Amanda announced service principal monitoring and enterprise application monitoring, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months ago that we added that in. So that would have picked this up. We have reporting on enterprise apps and the changes in permission that occurring those. So that definitely would have picked it up. The Entra audit logs, we obviously pull in all that data, what used to be Azure AD, now Entra. So those events would be picked up. We don't monitor Commvault specifically, but we would have picked up changes that were made to people that were messing with their enterprise app and modifying its service principles just by, having SaaS Alerts do what it does.
Yeah. And that's really what I wanted to bring out, Chip, is that the breadth of what the product can do, not at its core, right? But could have tipped people off had they been running this, that something was amok. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. And then let's see, we talked about this one, talked about this one. Okay. And then let me just see if I had any others for this week. I think that was, that was it. We talked about all these last week. So yeah, that's a wrap for this week, Chip.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Yep. We got a lot covered. Starting with the rabbit hole in the beginning of the call, which Jim missed the rabbit hole, I think.
Is Jim still with us?
Stepped out.
Yeah, jump out. Okay. All right. Well, awesome seeing everybody, and look forward to next Thursday. Yeah. Hard to believe we will be halfway through. We'll be in June, right? So think about this in a moment.
So I won't be here next Thursday, Andrew. I will be on a plane about this time back from Miami. So if I'm on a United flight and they have Starlink, I'll at least dial in and listen in.
Okay.
If not participate, but it's American. It's not United.
Is that
I'm
Jerry
screwed.
Garcia on your window there? Got your
It
decal?
is.
Yeah. Very nice.
Andrew, will you be in Secure next week?
I may, Enrique, I know some of my team is definitely going to be there. I think we're going to split up. I'll be heading to PAX 8 and Flow this month. Eric and Chris are going to be in, I think, Secure. I think we're splitting it up. So.
I'll see them at both.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I'll look forward to seeing you. And will you be at PAX 8?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be at PAX 8. Looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim, just in the nick of time. Good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good to see everyone.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great week.
Ben, stay to the bars, buddy.
Will do.
Adios.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
All right.